Let's bring in Raj Shah, Principal Deputy Press Secretary in the Trump White House. Raj, welcome to This Week.
Jonathan, thanks for having me on.
Let's get right to the big news on North Korea. First of all, can you tell us anything more about when or where this meeting is going to happen?
Let me step back, and when it comes to North Korea, it's important to understand how we got here. This president took office a little over a year ago, inherited a policy that wasn't working for the previous 8 years. He adopted a policy of maximum pressure on the North Korean regime. Over the last year, we've seen a lot of success. We've seen China dramatically reduce trade with North Korea. We've seen the United Nations impose some of the toughest sanctions on the North Korean regime. It's been increasingly isolated, both diplomatically and economically, with dozens of countries chipping in. And in this context, Kim Jong-un spoke with the South Koreans and made this overture. They're going to end or rather cease missile testing, cease nuclear testing, and they've agreed to not object publicly to the upcoming South Korea-United States joint military exercise.
Okay, but where is this meeting going to happen and when?
Well, again, it's going to be a time and a place to be decided. We don't have an announcement right now, but we have accepted this offer, and we hope that it can be the part of an important breakthrough.
Could it be here in the United States? Would President Trump be open to actually having Kim Jong-un at the White House?
Again, I have no announcement. It's at a time and a place to be determined.
But he wouldn't rule that out?
No, nothing's being ruled out at this
Including
stage.
going to Pyongyang. Would the president be open to going to North Korea, going to his turf on that?
Well, I don't think that that's, highly likely. But again, I'm not going to rule anything out.
And do we have any indications that Kim Jong-un is now open to denuclearization? This is something that this has been a point of pride, obviously, for North Korea. Do we have any indication that he's actually changed his view on this?
He's stated his commitment to denuclearization to South Korea's delegation that visited
Do you believe him? Do you think he can be trusted on that?
We think that Kim Jong-un is the only partner in North Korea that has any authority, that can make any decisions. So he's the only voice. He is committed or stated a commitment to denuclearization to South Korea. They've relayed that to us, and so we're open to this invitation.
And help me understand, when this announcement was made, the White House first just said the president has accepted the offer.
That's correct.
And then on Friday, Sarah Sanders, press secretary, said that there are concrete actions that North Korea has agreed to take before. Are there preconditions?
Well,
or is this definitely happening?
No, they have to meet the promises that they relayed to the South Koreans, which is, again, ceasing missile testing, ceasing nuclear testing.
That's pausing something, but are there concrete actions that they've agreed to take?
Again, this meeting, this potential meeting has been agreed to. There are no additional conditions being stipulated. But again, they cannot engage in missile testing, they cannot engage in nuclear testing, and they can't publicly object to the U.S.-South Korea planned military exercises.
Is there any chance this blows up, doesn't happen?
There's the possibility. If it does, it's the North Koreans' fault. They have not lived up to the promises that they made.
But the only thing that could stop this is if they resume their testing or they start.
Yeah, look, if they object to the obligations that they made, the promises that they made to the South Koreans, then obviously we would potentially not.
Okay, so help me understand. The president warned Rex Tillerson, his own Secretary of State, via Twitter in October that, quote, he was wasting his time trying to negotiate with Little Rocket Man. He even said, why would it work now? So let me just ask you that question. Why would it work now? What changed?
Well, look, the president has not adopted some of the failed policies we've seen over the last several decades, which is negotiations and concessions out of the gate from the United States. Our policy is pressure. It's pressure from our partners and allies around the world, pressure through the United Nations, pressure through China. These have had an impact, and it's impacted Kim Jong-un's behavior. It's impacted his conduct. So we're hoping that this pressure campaign, which is not going to relent in the coming months, is changing North Korea's behavior.
But the president told his own Secretary of State just a few months ago that it was a waste of time talking to, quote, Little Rocket Man.
Again, Kim Jong-un is the one who's made this offer, made this invitation. We have accepted. We hope that there can be a breakthrough. Eventually, a peaceful resolution is going to involve some level of negotiation. We hope that this is the path toward that.
So the president in his State of the Union address spoke very passionately about human rights violations. Otto Wambert, he had the dissident with his crutches.
Right.
There are now 3 Americans that are imprisoned in North Korea. Is he going to insist that those Americans are released?
Again, I'm not going to place any conditions on any ongoing or any upcoming talks, but
is he going to bring up the issue of human rights? Is that going to be part of this, or is this just nukes? Or?
It is an important issue. But again, our policy is one of maximum pressure to ensure denuclearizing the Korean Peninsula.
Okay, let's turn to tariffs. This was a move, obviously, that was condemned by most economists, by most Republicans, by most of our allies. Jeff Flake, Republican senator from Arizona, said these so-called flexible tariffs are a marriage of two lethal poisons to economic growth: protectionism and uncertainty. Trade wars are not won; they are only lost. Isn't Senator Flake actually right about that?
No, he's not. Look, this president ran on trade policies that promote the interests of American companies, promote the interests of American workers. And he's doing just that. He ran in a crowded Republican field, remember, with 16 other candidates, and then defeated Hillary Clinton with a platform that nobody else embraced on the issue of trade. The United States has some of the lowest tariff barriers in the world, and you know, we want our exports to have access to foreign markets, just as foreign products have access to the United States. And on the issue of steel and aluminum, those specific industries are critical to U.S. national security. We've seen the amount of steel factories, aluminum smelters decrease dramatically, not just since the 70s and 80s, but in the last 5 years. So to have these industries able to support our defense needs and critical and core infrastructure needs are important, not just to our economy, but to national security.
Well, he cited national security, but most of his own national security team actually opposed these tariffs. And if you look at the estimates of what the economic impact is going to be, we had one study by the Trade Partnership that says that it will save an estimated 33,000 jobs in steel and aluminum, but it will cost 180,000 jobs in the first year alone lost in other industries.
Right. Well, look, this action is very critical to national security. And as you said at the outset here, this is the president keeping a promise. His agenda.
Did the president's national security advisor favor this, H.R. McMaster?
I'm not going to get into internal deliberations. What I will say is that the president was offered the pros and cons of this action. He took it, and it's consistent with what he's been saying, not just since the campaign, but actually going back decades. He's been talking about how foreign countries have ripped off American businesses and American workers, and access to foreign markets is exactly what he wants and what he's going to be getting.
All right, it's been a month since the Parkland shooting, and the White House, we understand you guys are going to be announcing something today on the president's approach to school safety and guns. What can you tell us?
Well, the president and the White House is going to be laying out more specifics. There's going to be a series of proposals. Some will be legislative. Well, let me get into it. Some will be legislative, some will be administrative, and some will be recommendations for states, as well as a task force to study this issue in more depth and make more additional policy recommendations. So it's going to be consistent with what the president has talked about, which is
okay. Well, let's get into those specifics, because I was in the room when he was negotiating with congressional leaders. He made it very clear that he favors raising the age to buy assault weapons to 21. He also made it very clear that he favors universal background checks on all gun purchases. Are those two provisions part of this plan?
Well, improving the background check system is going to be a big component of it.
He didn't say improving. He said making them universal.
No, I understand, but I'm saying improving background checks from the Fix NICS legislation that Senator Cornyn and Senator Murphy have sponsored, as well as other measures, again, to make sure that the flow of information that goes in the background check system from local and state courts is more updated. Real-time information is made available
And universal?
Again, improving the check system that we have.
Okay, that's different than what he said. Now, what about raising the age? Because he made it very clear on that.
Yeah, the president has been clear that he does support raising the age of to 21.
As federal policy.
For certain firearms. Again, there's going to be recommendations to states, a task force. I don't want to get ahead of what's going to be announced, but I will say that will be a component of it, raising the age, as well as mental health. And as I mentioned, improving background checks.
The Wall Street Journal is reporting $50 million to go to help states and to help schools improve security. Is that number right?
Well, there's going to be a provision about hardening schools, what the president is talking about.
$50 million?
Again, I don't want to get ahead of the specifics, but I will say that there's going to be a component around getting volunteered individuals who are trained professionals into schools who can help.
All right, well, let's get to another topic where you can give me specifics, the Russia investigation. The president has told me twice now, once last year, once this year, that he will meet and talk to the special counsel, answer questions under oath. I assume the president plans to keep his word on that?
Well, look, he's also said that that will be in consultation with his attorneys. They have been in touch with the special counsel, and they're going to be communicating back and forth.
But he said 100% to me, 100% yes. Is there any?
I'm sure he intends to, but what I'm saying is that his attorneys are communicating with the special counsel on the specifics regarding that.
And it was reported this week that President Trump asked White House counsel Don McGahn to deny that the president had asked him to fire special counsel Mueller. And then, so I've got two questions on it, two specific ones. Did the president ask McGahn to fire Mueller, and did he subsequently ask him to deny that he had done that?
Well, again, matters pertaining to the special counsel, we are communicating, cooperating with the special counsel on. I can't go any further than that. I will say the president has been very clear and consistent. There was no collusion in this matter, no obstruction in this matter. There's not going to be any finding of wrongdoing. But the White House is cooperating with the special counsel's office.
But I'm not asking about the special counsel. I'm asking you about the president's actions. Did the president ask his White House counsel to fire Mueller?
Again, this is a matter that has been asked about with the special counsel.
So you can't tell me if that's not true.
What I'm saying is that matters pertaining to the special counsel are being dealt with the special counsel, and we're not litigating them in the press.
All right, I want to play something for you that Attorney General Jeff Sessions said when asked if he made a mistake by recusing himself from the Russia investigation.
Do you think it was a mistake to recuse yourself from the Russian investigation?
No, I don't. There is a specific regulation that says if you participate in a campaign, it explicitly says that, then you can investigate the campaign of which you were a part. Pretty reasonable.
Pretty reasonable, and he's right, isn't he? Or does the president think he's wrong?
Well, the president's been pretty clear about what he thinks of Attorney General Sessions' decision. Again, let's step back for a second. This investigation was about collusion with the Russian government, between the Trump campaign and the Russian government. There's been zero evidence after a year of investigation that we've seen of actual collusion between the Russian government and the Trump campaign. The president, who would be aware of any types of efforts, has been pretty clear, understands and knows that there's no collusion. And so, as he has said, this investigation is everything from a hoax to a witch hunt. It's not going to find any evidence of collusion.
Okay, so are there any circumstances, then back to a variation of the earlier question, that the president would fire Robert Mueller? For instance, if Mueller were to begin to look into the Stormy Daniels payoff, would that be a red line? Would the president fire him?
Well, I'm not here to declare any red lines. There's no intention whatsoever to fire Robert Mueller, the special counsel, right now. We've been fully cooperative. We respect their process. We're hoping it'll come to a conclusion in the near future.
Okay, when I asked you about Stormy Daniels, speaking of Stormy Daniels, this is what you said to me in the White House briefing room. Is the president aware that his lawyer paid that kind of money to a porn star to buy her silence? Does he approve of that?
I haven't asked him about it, but that matter has been asked and answered.
No, not since he acknowledged this. Yeah. He acknowledged this last week. This is the first time we got a chance to ask about it. So can you go back and we find out if the president approves of the fact?
I haven't asked him about that.
Will you ask him about that?
I haven't asked him about it.
But will you ask him about it, Roger?
I'll get back to you.
Okay, you get a chance to come back to me. Did the president approve the payment that his personal lawyer made to Stormy Daniels?
Again, not that I'm aware of, but Michael Cohen, the attorney in question, has addressed this. The White House has addressed, Sarah addressed it earlier this week, and I have nothing further to add.
Did the president reimburse Michael Cohen, his attorney, for making that payment?
Not to my knowledge, but again, Michael Cohen has addressed this matter extensively, and the underlying allegations.
Have you asked the president that question? Did you know?
I haven't asked the president about that question.
And does the president believe that Stormy Daniels has a right to speak on this issue, or is he demanding that she remain silent?
Again, this is a private legal matter for which the president's attorney has spoken about, and actually there's some orders in court regarding that matter. And again, I'd refer you to Michael Cohen about the specifics regarding that. I have nothing further to add.
Okay, we're almost out of time. I want to do a quick lightning round. There are a lot of questions that come up in the briefing room where we're told there will be answers to come, like this.
In terms of specifics beyond that, I'd have to check and get back to you.
But I could get back to you on the specifics.
So I'd have to verify and get back to you.
But I get back to you on that.
I'll have to get back to you on that one.
Okay, let's do a couple quick ones.
Sure.
One of the questions that came up, did President Trump talked to his friend Carl Icahn before imposing those tariffs on steel and aluminum. As you know, Mr. Icahn sold $31 million worth of aluminum stocks just before the announcement. That question was asked on March 5th. Do you have an answer for me today?
Not that I'm aware of. I don't know of any call, but I do think that Mr. Icahn and any investor could have looked at what the president has been saying for not just months, but years about this issue to understand where he was at.
Okay, and then on February 27th, there were a few. One, Sarah was asked, has the president had a meeting with his National Security Council to discuss options to deal with Russia's cyber attacks? Has that meeting happened?
There was a principals committee meeting between senior officials, both in law enforcement, national security agencies, to discuss this issue specifically.
Okay, and this is another one. Does the president believe that someone who is on the no-fly list should also be, because of suspected terrorist activity, should not be able to buy a gun? This was a position that he actually expressed during the campaign. He was asked about again. Sarah was asked again. Does he still hold that view?
I don't know.
No fly, no buy.
I don't know if he supports that specific provision. I will say that individuals who are placed on that list are not given due process rights to be able to get there.
And one last one. Steve Bannon, he was asked, Sarah was asked, when was the last time the president spoke to Steve Bannon?
Right. Well, I'm not aware of any phone calls that they have had, recently, I think in the last several months.
Raj Shah, your debut on This Week. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks a lot for having me.
Appreciate it.